Haruki deserves an Oscar. In the time that followed, Jiraiya had Nagato and the other two earnestly make as much chakra as possible. The three of them had started their training much later than the children in the village. Naturally, they had to put in more hard work. Haruki, on the other hand, was taught taijutsu by Jiraiya. Haruki. Before he could even surprise Jiraiya, he was trained by Jiraiya into a puddle of mud within a single day. On the way back to the wooden house in the evening, Haruki was trembling all over. Nagato and Yahiko helped Haruki back to the wooden house with difficulty. The seafood feast prepared by Jiraiya was already laid out on the table. Let's eat. The small wooden house, bathed in the setting sun, emitted a warm yellow light, filled with laughter and joy, making it exceptionally cozy. Haruki, who had trained hard all day, ate the food on the table in large mouthfuls. So delicious. Haruki's mouth was full. This seafood was truly fresh. Konan couldn't help but secretly laugh at him. While secretly laughing, she didn't forget to pick another piece of fish for him. Eat slowly, don't choke. Konan gently reminded him. She knew that Haruki had worked harder than the three of them today. On the way back, Haruki's clothes were completely soaked with sweat. You all should also eat more meat. Haruki picked meat for Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan respectively. After eating, they played games together in the living room for a while before returning to their respective rooms to rest. Night. Late at night, all was quiet. Occasionally, a frog's croak could be heard, making the night seem even more tranquil. Haruki, in order to appear profound and earn affection points, tiptoed out of bed and quietly left the bedroom. He came to the veranda outside the living room's window and sat down. The bright moon seemed to rise from the sea, scattering countless silver specks that slowly drifted with the waves. Haruki had a profound expression, looking as if he was burdened with many thoughts. After sitting silently for 2 minutes, he finally heard a sound as he wished. Why are you still awake so late? Footsteps came from behind, and Jiraiya walked over and sat beside him. Jiraiya looked down at the child beside him and asked curiously, I felt like you had a lot on your mind during dinner today. Haruki. Regardless of the truth, Haruki grinned triumphantly in his heart. This was the effect he wanted. I can't sleep. Haruki replied dejectedly. Haruki, how old are you this year? Jiraiya suddenly asked. Haruki thought of the age marked on the system and answered truthfully, 8 years old. He's still a child. Opening square bracket comma closing square bracket. Haruki had previously asked Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan their ages. Among the three of them, Konan was the youngest at 9 years old this year. So his 8 years old was quite advantageous. Hey. Opening square bracket comma closing square bracket. Jiraiya exclaimed in surprise as expected, 8 years old. He didn't expect that Haruki, who looked the most mature, was actually the youngest among this group of children. Not only that, although Haruki was young, he was more like the big brother among this group of children in terms of taking care of Yahiko and the others. Jiraiya felt a surge of emotion. Why do you always want to protect Yahiko and the others? Jiraiya connected it to what happened yesterday and asked searchingly. As far as he knew, Haruki had not spent much time with Yahiko and the others. Because Yahiko and the others are my family. Haruki earnestly told Jiraiya, my relatives all died in the war. It was Yahiko and the others who voluntarily let me stay with them. In my heart, they are my family. Jiraiya listened to his exceptionally naive and sincere words, feeling both sad and warm. And, Haruki continued. He pursed his lips, his large eyes sparkling in the moonlight. Even if I didn't know Yahiko and the others, I would still want to protect them. Jiraiya looked at Haruki with slight surprise. Next, he heard a sentence that shocked him. I want to protect everyone who has been hurt in the war. Haruki vowed. Jiraiya was speechless for a moment. Silence stretched for a long time. Jiraiya heard the question Haruki posed. Why must there be war? Jiraiya-sensei. Why do people have to fight and kill each other? Facing his confused questions, Jiraiya's heart grew heavier. Yes. Why must there be war? Jiraiya sighed deeply, echoing Haruki's words. After a while, he said to Haruki, this world is full of battlefields, and hatred is everywhere. I want to change this situation. What is peace? I also want to find the answer. Jiraiya looked deeply at Haruki, and his warm large hand ruffled Haruki's hair. Haruki, I believe you and Nagato can also do it. Perhaps you will find the answer to peace before I do. Jiraiya emphasized. Both Haruki and Nagato possessed abilities beyond ordinary imagination. Perhaps this was a hint from heaven. Fate had him stay and teach Haruki and Nagato, giving this world a chance for war to disappear. Jiraiya's heart was filled with strength. He would definitely teach Haruki and Nagato well. Haruki gradually became determined under Jiraiya's trusting gaze. He nodded and promised, I will definitely do it. Jiraiya smiled. He ruffled Haruki's head again and said, go back and rest quickly. Haruki stood up and said to Jiraiya, Jiraiya-sensei, good night. Jiraiya looked at his retreating back, a wave of tenderness rising in his heart. Good night. Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 2000. System hereby awards the host the annual Best Acting Male Host Award. Affection value 2000 has been collected. Would you like to feed your companion cursed spirit Rika? Yes, no. Haruki clicked, yes. Ding. Your companion cursed spirit Rika's rank has increased to 38.002%. Your companion cursed spirit Rika sends feedback. I want to sleep with Yuta. Quote. Haruki's response to Rika. Go ahead. He lied tiredly on the bed, closing his eyes and immediately falling asleep. The next day, he and the others appeared on the training rocky beach. Haruki was doing push-ups nearby, while Jiraiya was testing Yahiko and the others' chakra natures. Jiraiya handed each of the three a piece of paper. Haruki knew these were chakra paper. Of course, he didn't have any. He was someone without any chakra, let alone chakra nature. The test results were quickly out. Haruki listened to Jiraiya and their conversation while doing push-ups. Yahiko, your chakra nature is water. Next, I will teach you water release ninjutsu. Yes. Nagato, Konan, your two natures are special. Nagato has multiple chakra natures and can learn ninjutsu of different natures. Konan, you are more suited to maximize your own origami. Quote. 9 comments 0 vote. Bonus, this kid is a genius. Jiraiya first taught Nagato and Yahiko a simple crank water release ninjutsu. He stood on the sea, forming hand seals, with 2 fingers held to his lips. Water release. Wild water wave. A giant water ball spewed from his mouth, rushing towards the distant sea, stirring up huge waves. Amazing. Yahiko's eyes sparkled as he watched, exclaiming in awe. Jiraiya smiled. Jiraiya was definitely a qualified teacher. He meticulously explained to Yahiko and Nagato how to perform this ninjutsu. After speaking, Jiraiya gave Yahiko and Nagato time to explore on their own. Starting ninjutsu instruction the day after successfully extracting chakra was extremely fast progress, but Jiraiya had no choice but to do so. Because this was not Konoha, and Yahiko and the others were not Konoha villagers. Jiraiya could not stay here for a long time, so he could only teach them all the ninjutsu as quickly as possible. Even Jiraiya himself didn't know when he would receive an order from the village. He guided Konan on the other side, helping her develop her unique origami abilities. Konan was an exceptionally intelligent girl, she often only needed a hint from Jiraiya to understand. While Yahiko was still exploring, Nagato had already successfully performed the ninjutsu. Water release. Wild water wave. A small water ball spewed from Nagato's mouth, falling into the sea, and ripples immediately spread out in circles. Jiraiya looked at this scene in surprise. He succeeded on the first try. Jiraiya's eyes met Nagato's. He marveled in his heart, as expected of the wielder of the Rinnegan. I can't fall behind either. When Yahiko saw that Nagato beside him had already mastered the ninjutsu, a sense of crisis and fighting spirit was instantly ignited within him. He took a deep breath and began to work even harder, repeatedly performing the ninjutsu according to what Jiraiya had explained earlier. Haruki blinked. When Jiraiya had performed the ninjutsu, he had activated his cursed technique. Perhaps it was because his cursed technique was activated by cursed energy, causing Jiraiya to be completely unaware. Haruki's body had been transformed into Yuta's body, so Yuta's cursed technique was as if etched into his bones. Without him even realizing it, he began to copy Jiraiya's ninjutsu, following his deepest desires. Haruki stopped his training and ran to Jiraiya's side. What's wrong? Jiraiya saw him and thought he had encountered difficulties during his taijutsu training. Haruki pursed his lips, looked at the sea with anticipation, and said to Jiraiya, that one just now, can I try it too? Jiraiya didn't react for a moment. It wasn't until Yahiko and the others' gazes focused on Haruki that Jiraiya belatedly realized, Haruki wants to try ninjutsu. But that was too absurd. Haruki didn't even have chakra. Jiraiya looked at Haruki with regret, but when his gaze met Haruki's sparkling eyes, he didn't know how to refuse. So, Jiraiya suppressed the bitterness in his heart and said to Haruki, give it a try. Jiraiya only hoped that the result wouldn't hurt Haruki. Haruki was waiting for exactly that sentence. His body moved as his heart desired. The water release ninjutsu felt as familiar as if he had used it thousands of times, exceptionally smooth and effortless. Haruki's hand seal speed was extremely fast. Water release. Wild water wave. A giant water ball slammed violently into the sea. The soaring waves drenched all 5 people on the shore, including Haruki himself. Jiraiya, under the shock, didn't even manage to dodge. He was disheveled in the wind. His worldview suffered a huge impact. The understanding he had built in the ninja world had all collapsed into ruins at this moment. He looked at the sea, which had not yet calmed down, and then at Haruki beside him. Is this normal? Is this possible? Is he dreaming? No chakra, but able to use ninjutsu. How on earth was this done? Jiraiya was certain that this ninjutsu was definitely not activated by chakra. First, Haruki had no chakra. Second, the power fluctuation did not belong to chakra. Within his perception range, this power did not exist. In other words, this was a strange power similar to chakra, but not chakra. Jiraiya recalled the scene just now and added another piece of information. Moreover, the strength of this power was no less than that of chakra. Haruki, how did you do that? Jiraiya squatted down seriously and asked Haruki. Yahiko and the others also looked over curiously. But they didn't show as much shock as Jiraiya. They had no idea that there was only one type of power in the world, chakra. Their understanding of the ninja world had not yet been built up like Jiraiya's. Therefore, at this moment, they could easily accept Haruki's difference. Just as they quickly accepted Rika's existence back then. After watching it once, I just did it the way Jiraiya-sensei did. I felt a power within my body supporting me to perform it. Haruki said, half-truthfully. He observed Jiraiya's expression, seeming very scared. Jiraiya realized that his attitude might have scared the child a bit. He patted Haruki's shoulder reassuringly. His mind kept replaying Haruki's words. Watched it once. Could he perform it just by watching it once? Jiraiya lowered his gaze, and an idea formed in his mind. To verify his guess, Jiraiya stood up and said to Haruki in front of him, I'll perform another ninjutsu. See if you can learn it. Jiraiya still used the word learn, even though Haruki's speed was almost a replication. Jiraiya quickly formed hand seals. Wind release. Vacuum wave. This ninjutsu was not only a brank ninjutsu, surpassing crank, but Jiraiya's hand seal speed was also very fast, and he didn't explain it like the previous ninjutsu. If Haruki could still learn it under these circumstances, then Jiraiya could almost confirm one thing. Just like with the previous water release, wild water wave, as soon as the thought of performing this ninjutsu arose in Haruki's mind, muscle memory already led his hands to quickly form hand seals. Wind release. Vacuum wave. The air expelled from Haruki's mouth appeared in the shape of a blade. The sharp, knife-like aura instantly pierced through the air, cutting the water waves in front of it in half. After the ninjutsu's effect stopped, the water waves gathered together again, swallowing all traces. Haruki looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya's pupils trembled, his face and eyes were filled with shock. This kid is a genius. 100 PS equals 1 bonus chapter. Astralicity creators' thoughts. 12 comments 0 vote. Total cursed energy. While Jiraiya was processing this fact, Haruki thought of something else. How much cursed energy did he currently possess? He felt no pressure at all when performing the two ninjutsu. His body also did not show any signs of weakness. Haruki called out to the system in his mind. System. System. I can hear you. How much cursed energy do I have exactly? This. Before the system could find an excuse to refuse, Haruki started firing questions like a machine gun. I know my cursed energy is synchronized with Rika, and because of the cursed energy Rika and Sukuna carry, my current total cursed energy must be greater than my own cursed energy. You just need to tell me the number. After saying that, he added, if you can't even provide your host's information, you can go back to the furnace and be remade. Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. Tell me, what is my current cursed energy value? Haruki calmly repeated. Host, you've grown up. Quote ... Haruki's lips twitched. Stop talking nonsense. Every time he asked the system a question, its answer was completely irrelevant. Host, for your future growth, the system has now decided to add a total cursed energy column to the personal information section, making it convenient for you to check your cursed energy at any time. Quote ... This time, the system's normal behavior made Haruki feel a bit unusual. Logically speaking, the system shouldn't be so understanding. Although he was suspicious, Haruki didn't plan to delve into it. After all, his time was equivalent to emotional value. Haruki promptly opened the personal information page, and sure enough, he really saw the newly added total cursed energy column at the very bottom. The system's efficiency was quite good. Total cursed energy. Self-cursed energy 3,800,200 plus cursed spirit carried cursed energy 5,300,200. Haruki looked at the numbers before him and fell into contemplation. It was exactly as he had thought. His cursed energy growth perfectly matched Rika's growth progress. Rika's current growth progress was 38.002%, so his cursed energy reached 3,800,200. When Rika's growth progress reaches 100%, his cursed energy will also reach the peak value of this body, 10 million. The cursed energy carried by the cursed spirit matched Haruki's current cursed spirit growth progress. Sukuna's current growth progress was 15%, and the cursed energy he carried was 1,500,000, which, when added to the cursed energy carried by Rika, was 5,300,200. The upper limit of the cursed energy carried by cursed spirits that could empower Haruki should also be 10 million, but because there was no limit to the number of cursed spirits, the empowerment from the cursed energy carried by cursed spirits was basically unlimited for Haruki. Basically, one single cursed spirit can provide a maximum of 10 million CE, but there is no upper limit to the number of cursed spirits, so Mech basically has limitless potential in terms of CE pool. Ultimately, what Haruki needed to work hard on was collecting emotional value. Moreover, he coveted those unactivated copyable techniques, especially Toge Inamaki's cursed speech. Host, please don't get lost in fantasy yet. The activation of copyable techniques not only requires your companion cursed spirit Rika's growth to increase, but also requires the activation of other cursed spirits. Don't forget, I am the cursed spirit mother assistance system. Quote. Haruki hadn't forgotten, but he estimated the system had. If you hadn't said it, I would have almost forgotten you were an assistance system. A scamming system was more like it. The system didn't go offline, but Haruki couldn't help but go offline. As soon as Haruki went offline, he heard compliments from Konan and Yahiko beside him. Of course, Konan and Yahiko's praise was absolutely heartfelt. So amazing. Yahiko and Konan knew nothing. They only knew that Haruki had replicated Jiraiya's ninjutsu. Haruki also played along with them, acting as if he had no idea what he had done, smiling innocently at Yahiko and the others, taking their hands and saying excitedly, "That's great. This way I can continue to protect you all in the future." Yahiko and the others nodded heavily. "We can protect you too." Yahiko and the others were all very happy. The laughter of the four children reached Jiraiya's ears. Jiraiya looked at the smiles on their faces, and the solemnity in his heart temporarily faded. No matter what, they were all very good children. A gentle expression appeared on Jiraiya's face. He ruffled Haruki's head and said, "Then Haruki, you join in too." Haruki officially joined their ninjutsu training. Besides Haruki's extremely fast learning speed for ninjutsu, Jiraiya also discovered another issue. That was, Haruki seemed to be unaffected by chakra natures, he could master ninjutsu of all 5 elements. Not only that, the mysterious power within him, completely unfamiliar to Jiraiya, seemed to be very powerful. Far more abundant and sustained than Yahiko and the others' chakra. This made a sense of destiny subtly stir in Jiraiya's heart. Fate pushed these children towards him, perhaps to allow him to uplift them forward. The next day, Haruki and the others trained as usual on the rocky beach with Jiraiya. Haruki's learning progress was currently the fastest, but he still hadn't given up on taijutsu training. Therefore, Jiraiya had Yahiko and the others join taijutsu training as well. Jiraiya generously taught all his ninjutsu without reservation. Haruki was very satisfied with the current progress of ninjutsu replication. However, he was not satisfied with the collection of emotional value. The number of people was too small. Jiraiya, Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan provided too limited emotional value to him. While they could certainly provide the love value needed for Rika's growth, they lacked the most essential thing for Sukuna's growth, killing intent value. Not only that, he wanted more cursed spirits. To activate more cursed spirits, he needed to collect more diverse emotions. In this small house with only 5 people, it was very difficult for him to activate a third cursed spirit. And to collect complex and large amounts of emotional value, for Haruki, there was one most suitable place. The battlefield. The battlefield had all kinds of emotional values, and for Haruki, it was definitely a natural place for strength improvement. However, to go to the battlefield, he needed a special reason, and also an ability that could attract attention. In war, besides frontline combat forces, the most important aspect was medical care. Therefore, Haruki wanted to learn medical ninjutsu. He certainly knew that Jiraiya didn't know medical ninjutsu, but Jiraiya could call for help. When Haruki effortlessly performed the ninjutsu Jiraiya had just demonstrated, just as he had done before, a hint of admiration and praise flashed in Jiraiya's eyes. After Haruki stopped, he suddenly looked up at Jiraiya before him and seriously requested, "Jiraiya-sensei, I want to learn medical ninjutsu." Jiraiya was stunned to hear this, his gaze falling on Haruki's face. On this child's face, he had never seen any negative emotions. He was always kind, optimistic, and positive. He didn't have the scorching light of the sun, but he had a power that warmed hearts more than the sun. End of chapter. 100 Power Stones equals 1 bonus chapter. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/Astralicity. 8 comments 0 vote. Bonus reverse curse technique. Why? Jiraiya asked. Yahiko wanted to learn ninjutsu to protect himself and his companions, and to escape their past lives. Konan wanted to learn ninjutsu to follow in Yahiko's footsteps. Nagato was a child with deep thoughts and an introverted nature. Jiraiya couldn't tell how much he wanted to learn ninjutsu, but he could see that he was fearful of his own overly powerful strength. Because he was too strong, he was worried about hurting others. He was a child with an extremely soft heart. And Haruki was the child Jiraiya understood most deeply among the three. System. Jiraiya wanted to know when Haruki had the idea of learning medical ninjutsu, and why he wanted to learn medical ninjutsu. Haruki pursed his lips, and after a moment of silence, he said heavily, "I don't want to only learn offensive ninjutsu that hurts people. I want to save people." Jiraiya's pupils widened slightly. This child. Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 1000. The expression on Haruki's face remained sincere, filled with the conviction that came from deep contemplation. It was as if he had found his path. If I merely pay lip service to saving others, it's meaningless. I hope to truly heal others. Haruki continued to speak to Jiraiya after a moment of contemplation. Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 1000. Jiraiya looked at Haruki in shock. At this moment, in front of Haruki, he felt ashamed. Perhaps it was precisely because Haruki was still a child that his pure heart had not disappeared. No. It wasn't because Haruki was a child, but because Haruki was Haruki. Only Haruki would have such selfless thoughts. Whether they are ninja or not, whether they are enemies or not, I want to save them all. Haruki kept his gaze fixed on Jiraiya. In his pupils, Jiraiya saw the rising sun. Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 1000. I don't know if I can save everyone, but I'll save one if I can. Haruki's voice grew increasingly firm. His volume wasn't loud but everyone heard him clearly. No matter who it was, everyone felt a powerful force inject into their hearts with Haruki's words. I hope that one day, everyone can abandon prejudice and hatred, reconcile with themselves, and reconcile with their enemies, and the world will usher in peace. Haruki made his final elevation of his theme. With these words, let alone Jiraiya, even Yahiko, who wanted to conquer the world, had tears in his eyes. Konan and Nagato seemed to have been violently impacted in their worldviews. At this moment, they stared at Haruki motionlessly and intently, their eyes involuntarily revealing admiration and respect. Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 1000. Ding. System detected Yahiko's affection value plus 1000. Ding. System detected Nagato's affection value plus 1000. Ding. System detected Konan's affection value plus 1000. A total of 7,000 affection value has been collected. Would you like to feed your companion cursed spirit, Rika? Yes, no. Haruki, of course, fed Rika without hesitation. Ding. Your companion cursed spirit, Rika's rank has increased to 45.002%. Your companion cursed spirit, Rika, sends feedback. Yuta, so full. Rika loves Yuta. Quote. How many times had Haruki said to omit this feedback section? Ding. Copyable technique. Shoko Ieri, reverse curse technique activated. Note. Applicable to wounds caused by any power. It activated just like that. It was too strange. It was really too strange. Haruki suspected that the system had been swapped. The previous system would never have given such thoughtful reminders. For example, when ratio was activated, there wasn't a single notification. Anyway, reverse curse technique was a major help and it came at the right time. For Haruki, with his cursed energy, it was certainly more efficient to use reverse curse technique than medical ninjutsu, as it saved his cursed energy. After all, reverse curse technique and cursed energy belong to the same power system. But learning medical ninjutsu was still necessary. Otherwise, he wouldn't have an excuse to cover for reverse curse technique, nor would he find a reasonable excuse to leave the small wooden house. At this moment, Jiraiya, who had been lost in his own thoughts for a long time, exclaimed, "Is that so? To create peace with love and tolerance. Is this the path you have chosen, Haruki?" Jiraiya looked at Haruki seriously. From this moment on, he would no longer see Haruki as a child, because his thoughts had surpassed too many people in the ninja world, including himself. Your words have given me, your teacher, quite a revelation. Hearing Jiraiya's words, Haruki's eyebrow twitched imperceptibly. His words could certainly give Jiraiya a revelation, because these words were the path that the future Jiraiya would choose. Unfortunately, I, your teacher, don't know medical ninjutsu. Jiraiya scratched the back of his head regretfully, chuckling awkwardly. Nonsense. Haruki certainly knew he didn't know medical ninjutsu. He dropped his gaze slightly in disappointment, but soon, he raised his head again, his eyes filled with determination. It's okay, I can try it myself. He also needed to leave himself a second path. If Jiraiya didn't call someone, then he would tell Jiraiya that he had developed a reverse curse technique similar to medical ninjutsu and earn another wave of Jiraiya's affection value. He was already a genius, so it was reasonable for him to research medical ninjutsu, right? 9 comments 0 vote. Would you save your parents' killer? Host, it's time to get up. Host, it's time to get up. Host, it's time to get up. In the early morning, Haruki suddenly woke up to the system's terrifying high-pitched voice. He jolted upright from his bed and stopped the system. Shut up. Okay. System offline. Only then did Haruki feel the world become quiet. He took a deep breath of fresh air, washed up, and came to the living room for breakfast. He hadn't expected Jiraiya to give him such a big surprise. Pulling open the bedroom door, he immediately saw Tsunade sitting on the tatami mat. At that moment, Haruki almost knelt down to Jiraiya. Haruki's legs felt weak. He looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya gave him a triumphant smile. Tears welled up in Haruki's eyes. He sniffled, not holding back, and ran towards Jiraiya, hugging him. Thank you, Jiraiya-sensei. Thank you for getting a suitable person for me. Thank you for contributing to my great cause of collecting emotional value. Jiraiya hadn't expected Haruki to hug him. He patted his back, feeling incredibly soft-hearted. His peripheral vision caught Nagato's gaze. He actually saw envy in Nagato's eyes. Jiraiya. Was Nagato envious of him being hugged by Haruki? Nagato watched Haruki rush over to hug Jiraiya, and a faint envy welled up in his heart. Only he knew how warm Haruki's embrace was. When hugged by Haruki, he would feel that no matter what he encountered, he would no longer be afraid because there was someone who would always embrace and support him so unreservedly. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya and the child in front of her with surprise. She hadn't expected Jiraiya to be so close to these children. From Jiraiya's expression, she clearly saw his satisfaction with these children. HMPH. Thinking of this, Tsunade let out a soft snort. How could he not be satisfied? If he wasn't satisfied, would he have sent her a message yesterday, telling her to rush to Omegakure? When Tsunade received Jiraiya's urgent letter, she was so scared that she thought Jiraiya was about to die fighting Hanzo alone. She rushed from Konoha to Omegakure overnight, only to arrive and have Jiraiya tell her that it was merely to ask her to teach a child medical ninjutsu. If Jiraiya hadn't pleaded and guaranteed that this child would definitely not disappoint her, Tsunade would have beaten Jiraiya black and blue and then turned around and left. Jiraiya rubbed Haruki's head, who had already wriggled out of his embrace, and solemnly introduced, although I don't know medical ninjutsu, the person next to me is the ninja world's #1 medical ninja. Wow! So amazing! Konan and the others politely exclaimed. Haruki, as Omegakure's #1 hype man, immediately looked at Tsunade with sparkling eyes, full of admiration. I know Big Sister is a medical ninja. The first time we met, she was treating Jiraiya-sensei. Big Sister is truly amazing. Facing the most sincere adoration and praise from a group of children, even Tsunade, who who had heard such words hundreds of times, couldn't help but feel pleased. HMPH. Tsunade gave an arrogant snort, turned her head, and crossed her arms. Why do you want to learn medical ninjutsu? Tsunade raised her chin, squinting at Haruki, asking from a condescending position. Her attitude was certainly not friendly, but it also carried no malice, merely a simple inquiry. Of course, the answer would likely determine whether Tsunade would teach him medical ninjutsu. Haruki pursed his lips and gave a common answer, because I want to save people. Save people. Tsunade had heard this answer too many times, to the point where her ears were calloused. She pouted. Save who? Everyone. This time, Haruki's answer made Tsunade raise an eyebrow, piquing her interest a little. Save everyone. He really dared to say that. Even Tsunade couldn't bring herself to say, save everyone. She was a medical ninja, but she was not a saint. She also couldn't become a saint. Tsunade's pupils shifted, and she suddenly thought of something. She hesitated a little in her heart. Poking a child's scar seemed cruel, but she genuinely expected to hear a more unique answer. So, she steeled her heart and asked, how did your parents and relatives die? Jiraiya's eyes dimmed slightly, falling upon Haruki. Haruki froze, his pupils unfocused, revealing a look of pain. Jiraiya watched him clench his fists, as if the scenes of his relatives being killed were replaying in Haruki's mind. Jiraiya's eyes involuntarily showed distress. Haruki's eyes were slightly red as she said, they were killed by ninja. Tsunade paused for a few seconds. It was both a moment for Haruki to compose himself and for her to do the same. She took a deep breath and continued to ask, then if you were to see the ninja who killed your parents again, and they were severely wounded, would you save them? Tsunade's question instantly plunged the wooden house into a deathly silence. No one spoke. Anger had already stained Yahiko's pupils. He thought, what kind of question is this? This ninja was clearly trying to make things difficult for Haruki. Konan restrained the furious Yahiko. She shook her head at Yahiko and mouthed, listen to Haruki. Yes, listen to Haruki. This was Haruki's question, and only he could answer it. Yahiko angrily tightened his fists. Nagato stared intently at Haruki. He wondered, how would Haruki answer? Tsunade was not surprised by Haruki's silence. This was a question she herself couldn't answer. No, she could answer. Her answer was no, she wouldn't save them. She couldn't do it. I will. Haruki looked up at Tsunade in front of him. He wasn't lying. He could indeed heal his enemies. At worst, he would kill them after saving them. Haruki shrugged in his mind. Perhaps this way he could even earn double the emotional value. 1 part gratitude, 1 part hatred. A prophet. Quote. Tsunade frowned, disbelieving. She was more inclined to believe this was a forced answer Haruki gave to learn medical ninjutsu from her. Dissatisfaction appeared on Tsunade's face. Immediately after, Haruki continued to speak, filling the void of those simple 2 words, I will. It is precisely because of hatred that wars constantly continue. And to eliminate hatred, one side must first choose to let go of hatred and pass on love and tolerance. Tsunade looked at the child in front of her in shock. Unbelievable. Such words were actually spoken by an 8-year-old child. Tsunade's gaze instinctively shifted to Jiraiya. Jiraiya smiled and nodded at her. It was then that Tsunade understood why Jiraiya would treat this child differently. 100 PS equals 1 bonus chapter. Astralicity creators' thoughts. 10 comments 0 vote. Bonus copying and a rank ninjutsu. An eye for an eye will never stop hatred. But love can. Haruki's face showed a gentle smile. It was a tolerance that could embrace all hatred and malice. It allowed people to truly feel love in his eyes. Love for everyone around him. Feeling her blood uncontrollably boiling and her heart beating faster, Tsunade frowned deeply. I watched them die without helping, and their children suffered the pain of losing their parents, which gave rise to hatred. If it continues like this, when will the war ever stop? Haruki's eyes held a hint of reminiscence as he slowly said, when I was little, I got lost in the forest, and my parents led me out of it. I believe that my parents, who are already in the afterlife, would not want to see me lost in the forest of hatred again. I also don't want the pain of losing loved ones to befall others. Because I am a survivor, I know how painful it is, so I don't want others to endure the same pain as me. Haruki seemed to be radiating golden light. Tsunade's lips parted slightly, and she stared blankly at the child before her. She found it difficult to describe her shock. At that moment, she had only one thought in her mind. Truly amazing. There probably aren't many people in the entire ninja world who could say such words. Perhaps it was precisely because he had experienced too much pain that this child, who had lost everything due to war, was able to deeply reflect and achieve unprecedented growth. I am willing to teach you medical ninjutsu. Tsunade said without hesitation. Only such a person could truly make medical ninjutsu shine brightly because he possessed the brilliance of humanity. This was the most precious thing. Jiraiya smiled. He knew that no one would refuse Haruki because he was a child whose kindness made one want to cry. Haruki successfully gained Tsunade's approval. Good. Jiraiya stood up, a brilliant smile on his face. Let's start our training today. Jiraiya looked at Haruki and said, although Haruki needs to learn medical ninjutsu, before learning medical ninjutsu, let's learn today's ninjutsu first. Tsunade immediately frowned at Jiraiya, dissatisfied. He should be with me all day today, learning medical ninjutsu. Medical ninjutsu is much harder to learn than ordinary ninjutsu. More time should logically be allocated to medical ninjutsu. Jiraiya appeased Tsunade, patting her shoulder and mysteriously winking at her. Don't worry. It won't take long. Tsunade thought Jiraiya was crazy. Learning ninjutsu takes at least a month, and sometimes half a year or even 5 years. How could it be as easy as Jiraiya made it sound? However, when Tsunade, standing by the sea, personally watched Haruki effortlessly replicate the ninjutsu Jiraiya had just performed, her expression suddenly turned serious. Jiraiya, what's going on? Tsunade was full of doubts. Besides Haruki instantly replicating the ninjutsu Jiraiya performed, there was another point that made Tsunade even more puzzled. That was, she couldn't sense this child's chakra at all. Jiraiya nodded to Tsunade and waved to Haruki. Haruki ran towards the two of them and stood obediently by their side. Jiraiya explained to Tsunade, this is what I wanted to tell you. Jiraiya rubbed Haruki's head and said, this child has amazing talent, he can quickly master any ninjutsu just by looking at it once. Tsunade's shocked gaze moved back and forth between Jiraiya and Haruki. Even Orochimaru, who was known as a genius, couldn't do anything this incredible. This was beyond what the word genius could describe. But he doesn't have chakra. What? As soon as Jiraiya finished speaking, Tsunade's eyes widened abruptly, and she said in disbelief, how is that possible? Learning ninjutsu without chakra. It was utterly preposterous. It's true, he doesn't have chakra in his body, but he has another power. That power is very strong, capable of supporting him in performing ninjutsu, and its power is in no way inferior to chakra. Jiraiya's serious expression told Tsunade that he wasn't talking nonsense, her mind was in a tangled mess. Although such a thing was unheard of, the fact was laid out before her, and she had no choice but to accept it. Tsunade lowered her gaze to Haruki, and ultimately decided not to dwell on the issue anymore. She had Jiraiya catch a basket of fish. The fish kept flopping around in the basket. Tsunade took out a live fish, pulled a kunai from her ninja tool pouch, and cut a long wound on its belly. A green light glowed on her hand, and she instinctively wanted to explain the intricate manipulation of chakra to Haruki, but before she could speak, she suddenly remembered that Haruki didn't have chakra. Tsunade was immediately stumped and didn't know what to say. After all, she knew nothing about the power within Haruki's body. So, she could only watch as the wound on the fish's belly rapidly healed under her chakra. Tsunade. At this moment, Jiraiya's hand reached into the fish basket. He caught a fish, cut its belly with a knife, and gestured for Haruki to try it. Haruki smiled at Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sensei is so understanding. Haruki's hand landed on the fish's belly, and the familiar sensation returned to his body. In a moment, a green light glowed in his hand. The fish's belly gradually healed. Copy is truly powerful. His cursed technique automatically recognized Tsunade's medical ninjutsu as a copyable technique, so it replicated the situation as Tsunade performed it. The resulting effect was what Haruki was currently demonstrating. Even if the green light in his hand wasn't chakra but cursed energy. No. Haruki frowned. Mystical palm technique is an a rank ninjutsu, and his copy is limited to ninjutsu below a rank. So how did he successfully copy an a rank ninjutsu? Could it be? The light screen unfolded according to Haruki's will. Copy current progress 45.002% can copy ninjutsu below shrank. Indeed. As the progress increased, the level of copy had increased. Tsunade stared dumbfounded at the completely healed fish belly. Is this possible? Tsunade knew better than anyone how difficult medical ninjutsu was to learn. Medical ninjutsu has extremely strict requirements for chakra control and understanding, and very few ninja can reach this level, which has led to medical ninjas always being a scarce resource in the ninja world. And this child before her succeeded on the first try. Tsunade even thought she was dreaming. It was too unrealistic. She looked at Jiraiya, who was holding a lively, flopping fish in his hand. Seeing the smile in Jiraiya's eyes, Tsunade's heart constricted. Did Jiraiya already anticipate such a scene? Bastard. Medical ninjutsu is amazing. Tsunade-sensei. Tsunade's shocked feelings were interrupted by Haruki's excited voice. She was startled by Haruki's address. She paused, looked at the happy eyes of the child before her, and said nothing, tacitly accepting the title. Tsunade-sensei, I will not let your teachings down. Haruki looked at Tsunade, his eyes sparkling with determination. The various emotions intertwined in Tsunade's heart faded at this moment. A smile unconsciously appeared in her eyes. She began to look forward to this child's future. 17 comments 0 vote. Tsunade's most important lesson. Since you've mastered mystical palm technique, let's try this. Tsunade reached out and forcefully tugged on Haruki's hair, almost yanking his head from his neck. Haruki stabilized himself, and a quick glance downwards confirmed that the ring on his finger was once again emitting black mist. Don't come near Yuta. A faint female voice drifted through the air. Tsunade's expression turned serious as she searched for the source of the voice. Haruki quickly caressed the ring, soothingly saying, Rika, Tsunade-sensei is guiding me in my training. Be good, okay? Please don't get jealous, okay? As Haruki caressed it, the black mist on the ring gradually faded. Rika is good. Listen to Yuta. Tsunade listened to the voice in her ear, her gaze falling on Haruki's ring. What is this? Tsunade's confusion was too obvious. Haruki smiled slightly at Tsunade and explained, she's my fiancé, Rika. She's a bit prone to jealousy, so please don't mind her, Tsunade-sensei. Tsunade looked at Haruki's ring in disbelief. She couldn't quite comprehend Haruki's words. Haruki's ring was his fiancé. And it could talk. Jiraiya rubbed his forehead, he could tell from Tsunade's expression that she had misunderstood something. He explained on Haruki's behalf, Rika and Haruki were childhood friends. After she died, her soul resides in Haruki's ring, protecting him. Tsunade was dumbfounded, staring at Haruki in shock. Her expression gradually grew more solemn as she said, how could a soul remain? After the body dies, shouldn't the deceased soul go to the afterlife? Haruki pursed his lips and said with some guilt, I cursed Rika, which is why her soul couldn't go to the afterlife and stayed by my side. Cursed. Tsunade glanced at Jiraiya. From Jiraiya's expression, it seemed he knew about this matter. How did you curse her? She had never seen such a miraculous thing before. Haruki shook his head blankly and said, I don't know either. I just know that I couldn't accept Rika's death, and the Rika who had died remained. I also want Rika to go to the Pure Land, but I can't do it. Haruki lowered his head guiltily. Looking at his tear-filled eyes, the solemnity on Tsunade's face gradually disappeared. She had initially thought Haruki had used some forbidden jutsu that violated the will of the deceased, but it seemed that wasn't the case. Haruki had unconsciously left the deceased soul behind. This should be some kind of secret jutsu that Haruki possessed. Haruki himself couldn't even control this secret jutsu. She wondered if this secret jutsu had any harm to Haruki himself. Tsunade realized what she was thinking and immediately shook her head, shaking off the worries in her mind. Haruki was Jiraiya's disciple, so Jiraiya should be concerned about such matters. She was only briefly guiding Haruki in medical ninjutsu. She didn't want to bother herself with it. Tsunade acted as if nothing had happened and changed the subject. Next, the ninjutsu I'm going to teach you is chakra scalpel. As her words fell, Tsunade extended her hands in front of Haruki, and her hands were immediately covered by a layer of blue chakra. The chakra flowed over her hands, forming the shape of a blade. Tsunade glanced at Jiraiya, who understood and handed the live fish back to Tsunade. The chakra scalpel was incredibly sharp, easily cutting open the live fish's belly. Tsunade said, the chakra scalpel can cut through the surface of the skin and delve deep into the injured person's body for cutting, even if there are no external wounds, and it can also be used as a weapon for attack. Haruki listened to Tsunade's explanation and nodded. I understand. The chakra scalpel in Tsunade's hand disappeared, and a green light glowed in her hand, rapidly healing the wound on the fish's abdomen. She placed the live fish in front of Haruki and said, you try. Haruki nodded. When Tsunade had just demonstrated the chakra scalpel, he had activated his ninjutsu copy ability. His current total cursed energy was substantial, more than enough to copy to a rank ninjutsu. Haruki extended his hands. Tsunade and Jiraiya both watched his hands intently, feeling inexplicably nervous. The next second, blue light appeared in Tsunade's and Jiraiya's pupils. Blue cursed energy condensed on Haruki's hands, quickly forming the shape of a blade. It was identical to the chakra scalpel Tsunade had just condensed. The difference was that Haruki's was a cursed energy scalpel. Haruki used the cursed energy scalpel to cut open the live fish's belly. The incision was neat and smooth. Tsunade looked at Haruki's focused profile, the accumulation of shock having turned into numbness. Although she couldn't believe there was such a genius in this world, the facts were before her eyes, undeniable. The cursed energy in Haruki's hand disappeared, and his hand rested on the live fish's belly. Haruki's mystical palm technique also relied on cursed energy to activate. Suddenly, his hand was gripped by Tsunade. Haruki looked at Tsunade's eyes, full of confusion. Tsunade glanced at the fish and said to him, "This fish has undergone multiple medical ninjutsu experiments. Even if you use mystical palm technique, you won't be able to save it." This was the most important lesson Tsunade wanted to teach Haruki. Medical ninjutsu cannot save every life. Tsunade's eyes were downcast. Even if she was the strongest medical ninja, there were still times when she was helpless. Facing ninja who were severely injured and on the verge of death, she could only alleviate their pain, not prevent the arrival of death. Watching the fish's tail, which had been flapping on the ground, gradually stop, Haruki broke free from Tsunade's iron-like grip. His hands were placed on the wound on the fish's abdomen, his expression focused, his gaze sharp. A green light quickly emanated from his hands. The long wound rapidly healed. The fish's tail, which had stopped flapping on the ground, suddenly flapped again. Haruki cupped the live fish and released it back into the sea. As soon as the fish entered the sea, it immediately regained its vitality, wagging its tail and disappearing like lightning from Haruki and their sight. Tsunade frowned. She strode forward, grabbed Haruki's hands, and pulled them under her eyes to examine them. "What did you do?" These hands were no different from her own. But these hands had healed that fish that was destined to die. No one knew better than Tsunade that after multiple experiments, the fish's cells had lost their activity, and the wound simply couldn't heal. Haruki seemed to not understand Tsunade's loss of composure. He quietly looked at Tsunade and said, "I didn't do anything. I just thought in my heart that I wanted to save it." Tsunade seemed to have all her strength drained, and her hands, still clutching Haruki's, dropped. She stared deeply at Haruki. On the battlefield, she had desperately wanted to save fallen comrades, but no miracle had occurred. No matter how much chakra she expended, her comrades still died. But such a miracle appeared on Haruki. End of chapter. 100 Power Stones equals 1 bonus chapter. Read 30 advanced chapters on patreon.com/Astralicity. 12 comments 0 vote. Bonus, it's time to leave. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, who was completely oblivious. She thought, perhaps Jiraiya was right. The power of this child before her had already exceeded her imagination. He might truly be able to change the ninja world. What's wrong? Jiraiya walked over to Tsunade, his gaze filled with concern as he looked at her. Tsunade raised an eyebrow and smiled. "He healed a wound I couldn't treat." Jiraiya was stunned. He looked at Haruki. A wound that even Tsunade couldn't treat. How was that possible? Hearing Tsunade's words, Haruki's pupils dilated, and he scratched his head, completely unaware. "But I just did it the way Tsunade-sensei taught me. Let the existence of reverse curse technique remain hidden by him." Tsunade took a deep breath, patted Jiraiya's shoulder, and said to him with an unclear meaning, "The same medical ninjutsu in his hands can heal wounds that were originally incurable. He might be the person you've been searching for." Jiraiya's heart felt like it was about to leap out of his chest. He stared at Haruki intently. Could he be the person he had been searching for all along? "I can't stay in a megacure for too long." Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, shrugging her shoulders with a somewhat helpless expression. "As you can see, your student mastered my medical ninjutsu in just one day, and I can't teach him any more, so I have to leave." Jiraiya looked at Tsunade and said, "Thank you, Tsunade. Thank you, Tsunade, for traveling thousands of miles overnight to a megacure, and for generously imparting medical ninjutsu to Haruki." Tsunade was a bit unaccustomed to Jiraiya's demeanor at that moment. She punched Jiraiya in the chest. "Are we still being polite with each other?" Jiraiya clutched his chest, almost spitting out a mouthful of old blood. An ordinary person truly couldn't withstand Tsunade's punch. Want to leave after dinner? Jiraiya swallowed the blood and suggested. Tsunade shook her head, her expression solemn. No, there are still missions in the village. Jiraiya sighed silently, missions indeed could not be delayed. He said, then I'll see you off. Tsunade nodded, a smile gracing her lips. All right. Haruki came closer, standing beside Jiraiya, facing Tsunade. Tsunade-sensei, I'll see you off too. Tsunade lowered her gaze to him, reached out her hand towards Haruki, and placed it on Haruki's shoulder. I hope you always remember your original intention for learning medical ninjutsu. Tsunade said. Haruki's original intention for learning medical ninjutsu. To earn emotional value. Haruki nodded firmly. AMD said, Tsunade-sensei, I will always remember it. How could he forget to earn emotional value? Tsunade withdrew her hand, feeling pleased. Haruki and Jiraiya saw Tsunade off at the dock. Tsunade boarded the ship. She stood on the deck, watching Jiraiya and Haruki grow smaller in the distance. Their figures quickly shrunk into two tiny black dots, slowly disappearing from her sight. The ship disappeared into the boundless sea, and Jiraiya and Haruki walked towards the seaside wooden house. Yahiko and the others remained in the wooden house, diligently practicing ninjutsu. On the way back, Haruki suddenly asked, will Jiraiya-sensei leave us too? Hearing such a question out of the blue, Jiraiya was startled, then reacted with a hint of helplessness. His gaze fell on Haruki as he said, Haruki, no one can accompany you forever, and neither can I. Jiraiya keenly noticed that Haruki's mood became low. Haruki pleaded, Jiraiya-sensei, can you leave a little later? I don't want to part with Jiraiya-sensei. A smile appeared in Jiraiya's eyes, and he saw a blush on Haruki's cheek. Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 500. Currently collected affection value plus 500. Would you like to feed it to the accompanying cursed spirit Rika? Yes, no. Haruki said in his mind, we can skip this step in the future. He earned affection value solely for Rika's growth. Was there even a need to ask? Ding. Your accompanying cursed spirit Rika's rank has increased to 45.502%. Your accompanying cursed spirit Rika sends feedback. Yuta, I miss you. Haruki's lips twitched, and he continued to say in his mind, skip this step in the future too. Received. Processing. I will only leave once you all have fully grown and gained the ability to protect yourselves, so don't worry. Jiraiya comforted him. By the time they returned to the seaside wooden house, it was already dusk. Yahiko and the others had already returned to the wooden house. Seeing Jiraiya and Haruki appear, their eyes lit up. Jiraiya put his hands on his hips and instructed Yahiko and the others, tonight we're having a seafood feast. Let's go. Let's go catch some fish. Yay. Yahiko was the first to jump up and rush out the door. Konan smiled and followed behind Yahiko. Nagato glanced at Haruki, who smiled back at him. The two of them chased after Yahiko and Konan. Watching the backs of the four of them, a bright light flickered in Jiraiya's eyes. A month's time passed in a flash. Haruki repeated his daily routine of practicing taijutsu and copying Jiraiya's ninjutsu. Almost all of Jiraiya's ninjutsu below S rank had been copied by Haruki, including the A-rank ninjutsu Rasengan. Although the progress of ninjutsu copy was good, the progress of emotional value remained stagnant. Sukuna's rank had remained at 15%, completely motionless. Rika's rank, on the other hand, had intermittently risen to 46%. The overly peaceful life made it incredibly difficult for Haruki to collect emotional value. Haruki looked at Jiraiya and the others, who were eating with relish, and put down his chopsticks. He had to set sail. Otherwise, Sukuna would starve to death. What's wrong? Seeing Haruki not using his chopsticks, Jiraiya was a bit puzzled. Why aren't you eating, Haruki? Yahiko and the other two also looked at him strangely. Haruki's gaze moved from them one by one, finally settling on Jiraiya. Jiraiya noticed something different in his eyes and put down his bowl and chopsticks. Jiraiya-sensei, Yahiko, Nagato, Konan, I plan to leave this place. As soon as Haruki finished speaking, Yahiko immediately propped his hands on the table, leaning his upper body towards Haruki. Why? Why are you leaving us, Haruki? What's wrong with you? Tears quickly welled up in Konan's eyes as she looked at Haruki. She bit her lower lip, not saying a word. Nagato was unusually silent. Jiraiya calmly looked at Haruki, waiting for Haruki's explanation. 11 comments 0 vote. Saving a ninja. A megakure is deeply mired in war, and countless people like us, whose lives have been destroyed by war, are living in dire straits. The reason I learned medical ninjutsu with Tsunade-sensei is to save more lives. With great power comes great responsibility. I cannot enjoy my current stable life with a clear conscience. I want to save people. Haruki lowered his head, tears dripping onto the table. Even if you don't agree, I will go. I'm sorry. Jiraiya looked at his bowed head, at his continuously falling tears, and said helplessly, Haruki, no need to apologize, there's no need to apologize. As Haruki's teacher, he was proud to have a student like Haruki. With great power comes great responsibility. Who would have thought that Haruki, an 8-year-old child, could say such words? Ding. System detected Jiraiya's affection value plus 1000. Ding. Your companion cursed spirit Rika's rank has increased to 47%. Jiraiya-sensei. Haruki looked up, touched, his eyes blurred with tears. Jiraiya smiled at him encouragingly. Conan said softly, but it's very dangerous. Tears welled up in her eyes, she wanted to keep Haruki. She did not want Haruki to get hurt. The terror of those ninjas had left a deep shadow in her heart. I'm not afraid of danger, I will be careful. Haruki promised Conan. Conan did not know what to say to make Haruki stay. This was Haruki's own choice. If she insisted on stopping Haruki, Haruki would definitely be sad. But letting him go like this, she worried about Haruki's safety. Conan's brows furrowed like caterpillars, deeply conflicted. I will work hard and train. Nagato, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. Jiraiya and Yahiko were stunned. Haruki also looked at Nagato. Nagato raised his head, his rinnegan, revealed from beneath his red hair, was full of seriousness, and he said word by word, when my strength catches up to Haruki, I will change a megakure with Haruki. Ding. System detected Nagato's affection value plus 1000. Jiraiya was stunned when the usually reserved Nagato suddenly said something like this. The next second, Yahiko, beside Jiraiya, slammed the table and stood up with great passion. Yahiko wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes and shouted loudly, Nagato is right. He looked at Haruki, as if making a vow. I will also work hard in training. We will find you then. Let's achieve our dreams together. Ding. System detected Yahiko's affection value plus 1000. A total of 2000 affection points have been collected, and your companion cursed spirit Rika's rank has increased to 49%. Jiraiya looked at the genuine emotions in the children's eyes and could not help but smile. Hearing the system's broadcast, Haruki beamed with joy. He nodded to Yahiko and the other two, promising, I'll wait for you. After lunch, Jiraiya, Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan stood at the door of the wooden house to bid farewell to Haruki. Haruki, carrying his backpack, waved at them. Jiraiya and the others watched Haruki's figure walk away. Haruki climbed the hillside. By this time, the small wooden house by the sea had become only the size of a fist in his vision. He walked towards the center of a megakure without looking back. The wooden house by the sea was nearly 20 kilometers from the center of a megakure. There was no one in sight on the road. Thanks to the physical training during this period, the 20 kilometers were not difficult for him. Haruki stopped and took a breath. Ahead was a lush forest. As long as he passed through this forest, he would be able to reach the center of a megakure. When he reached the central town, the first thing he wanted to do was to sharpen his sword. Jiraiya was a good person. When he left, he even put money in his bag. Stepping into the forest, Haruki raised his guard. A megakure was in turmoil, and any place could suddenly turn into a battlefield. The forest in front of him was the best place for ninja battles. The dense trees supported huge canopies, blocking the already dim daylight, and Haruki's vision instantly became dim. He carefully stepped on the damp humus. A faint smell of rust permeated the air. The thick tree trunks around were covered with traces left by various ninjutsu and ninja tools. The deeper he went into the forest, the taller the trees became, with gnarled veins exposed on the surface, and roots deeply embedded in the black soil. Haruki leaned against an ancient tree beside him, climbed onto a raised root, and as soon as his foot landed, his body immediately plummeted uncontrollably. Something was pulling him down. Haruki's heart almost flew out. He immediately stabilized himself, struggling and looking down at the same time. A hand covered in mud and blood tightly gripped his ankle. No matter how Haruki kicked, the owner of this hand refused to let go. Not sensing danger, after his heartbeat calmed, Haruki carefully squatted down towards the person on the ground. Black mist swirled around his ring. As long as the person on the ground made any rash move, Rika could instantly tear them to shreds. Haruki brushed away a thick layer of fallen leaves. A cold light was reflected in his eyes. It was the light reflected from a forehead protector. During his time in the wooden house, Jiraiya not only taught them taijutsu and ninjutsu but also explained knowledge about the ninja world. From the pattern on the forehead protector, the ninja in front of him was a ninja from a Megakure. Save! Save! Me! His pale, cracked lips moved, emitting a faint breath. Haruki's gaze moved downwards, seeing a huge penetrating wound on the ninja's chest. Haruki. Even Tsunade would not be able to heal such a severe injury. But Tsunade not being able to heal it did not mean he could not. As long as the ninja in front of him still had a breath left, his reverse curse technique could heal him. Green light emanated from Haruki's hand. The ninja's wound was enveloped in green light. Due to excessive blood loss, he could not even open his eyes. Sending out a distress signal had exhausted all his strength. An intense pain, like a needle, forcefully pierced his brain. His numb and hazy consciousness suddenly cleared. The sharp pain slowly receded like a tide. Suzaku forced his eyelids open, his vision blurry. He blinked, feeling strength return to his body. Who saved him? His pupils slowly moved, his vision gradually became clear, and the tender face of a child beside him entered his sight. You're awake. Haruki looked at the ninja who had opened his eyes. Suzaku supported himself with his hands on the ground and sat up. He placed his hand on his chest, feeling smooth skin, and his pupils constricted to pinpricks. Where was his wound? Suzaku's gaze was firmly fixed on Haruki. End of chapter. 100 PS equals 1 bonus chapter. PS Frenzy. Astralicity creators thoughts. 8 comments 0 vote. Bonus nostalgia value. It's great that you're okay. Seeing the ninja looking lively and healthy, Haruki's eyes curved, and he said happily. Suzaku looked down at his chest again in surprise and uncertainty, then he looked up and scanned his surroundings. Besides him and the child in front of him, there was no trace of anyone else in the entire forest. You saved me. How could this be? Suzaku didn't believe that this child in front of him possessed such ability. A Megakure wasn't without medical ninjas, but Suzaku had never seen any medical ninja capable of healing such severe wounds. Haruki nodded innocently and said, yes, I saved you. As if he hadn't noticed Suzaku's shock, he continued to speak to himself, it's a good thing I arrived early. If I had come any later, I might not have been able to save you. As he said this, relief appeared on his face. Suzaku stood frozen in place. It was really this child who saved him. How could it be? It was a miracle. A dark light flashed in Suzaku's pupils, and he asked, you know medical ninjutsu? Haruki nodded, and scratched his head sheepishly. Yes, my medical ninjutsu is quite powerful. At such a young age, to be able to use medical ninjutsu so skillfully. Suzaku immediately made a decision in his heart. He didn't doubt for a moment that the child in front of him was a spy. After all, no ninja village would send a child with such skilled medical ninjutsu to be a spy. Where are your parents? Suzaku asked a question unrelated to medical ninjutsu. He already had a rough guess in his mind. After a Megakure became a battlefield, many children lost their parents in the war, and war orphans in a Megakure were countless. Since there were no adults around the child in front of him, he must be one of those countless orphans. Haruki paused, he lowered his eyes and took a deep breath. My mom and dad are no longer here. But I will definitely listen to my mom and dad and live well. His voice was full of determination. Suzaku looked at his shining eyes, and for a moment, he felt a little uncomfortable. The special geographical location led to a Megakure inevitably becoming the battlefield for Konoha and Tsunade. Later, Hanzo led them to fight against Konoha and Tsunade simultaneously, just to prove a Megakure's strength, so that Konoha and Tsunade would no longer use a Megakure as a battlefield, and to free the ravaged Megakure from further exploitation by war. However, such an action once again pushed a Megakure into the quagmire of war. This was a cycle. But for the future of a Megakure, they had to endure the current pain. Drive Konoha and Tsunade out, sign treaties with them, and make it impossible for Konoha and Tsunade to set foot in a Megakure again. This was what Suzaku and his comrades were doing now. They were not unaware of the suffering of the people of a Megakure, but they were helpless. In order for a Megakure to usher in lasting peace in the future, they could only sacrifice the current villagers. The sacrifices of them, the ninja, were no less than those of the villagers, but they could not wallow in pain. There were still enemies waiting for them to drive out. Where are you going? Suzaku asked, seeing the backpack on Haruki's back. I'm going to the central town. Haruki said to Suzaku. That place is full of ninjas, what are you going there for? Suzaku asked. Omegakure was not large to begin with, and now the entire Omegakure was caught in the midst of war. The central town was entirely comprised of ninjas, constantly following Hanzo's orders to fight against Konoha and Tsunade. The villagers had long since fled the central town. Some hid in the deep mountains and valleys, while others directly escaped Omegakure. Few went to the central town like the child in front of him. I'm going to save people. Haruki stared at Suzaku seriously, enunciating each word. My mom and dad died protecting Omegakure. Although I don't have the ability to protect Omegakure, I can save ninja who are injured protecting Omegakure, just like my mom and dad. His clear, childlike voice was resonant and firm. Suzaku felt his head spin a little from his words. He reached out and supported his forehead, his eyes a little red. Do you know that that place is very dangerous? Suzaku took a deep breath, lowered his hand, and said to the child in front of him. Haruki nodded. Of course I know. I've seen so many strange ninjas. If I hadn't dodged them in time, I might have already been dead. He rubbed his arms in fear. Then you're going to the central town, aren't you afraid of death? Suzaku continued to ask. Haruki hesitated. Of course I'm afraid of death. Suzaku looked at him, and for a moment, his gaze softened, not knowing what he was thinking of. All ninja fear death, let alone a child. I'm all alone, and it will be dangerous wherever else I go. Since there's danger everywhere, I might as well go to a place I want to go. Haruki pursed his lips, sat on the ground, and hugged his knees with a lost expression and said, Omegakure is my home where I grew up, and my mom and dad are here. I don't want to leave home, I don't want to leave my mom and dad. Suzaku's nose tingled, and his throat felt like it was blocked by a wad of cotton, unable to make any sound. His younger brother, who had died in the war, had said the same thing to him. I don't want to leave Big Brother. Wherever Big Brother is, I'll be there. Big Brother, let's go together. Haruki invited. That way I won't be so scared. Haruki scratched his head sheepishly. Ding. System has detected Suzaku's nostalgia value plus 3000. Not enough to activate a cursed spirit, nostalgia value has been stored. Haruki's address made Suzaku's memories of his younger brother even more vivid. He took a deep breath and nodded towards Haruki. Don't worry, I'll protect you. Even if this child didn't have great medical ninjutsu, he would protect his safety. Haruki gave Suzaku a sweet smile. Nostalgia value. What cursed spirit could nostalgia value activate? Haruki was curious. He inadvertently glanced at Suzaku out of the corner of his eye. Since there was such a thing as nostalgia value, he wouldn't be polite. Big brother, my name is Haruki Shiratori, you can call me Haruki. Haruki said enthusiastically to Suzaku. Suzaku nodded. Haruki's eyes darted around, and he asked, What's your name, big brother? Suzaku. Haruki, then I'll call you brother Suzaku. Before Suzaku could speak, he chattered on endlessly, I've always really wanted a big brother. Every time I'm scared, I think, if only I had a big brother, maybe I wouldn't be scared. A big brother would definitely protect me. He tentatively took Suzaku's hand. Suzaku stiffened, but didn't shake him off. Ding. System has detected Suzaku's nostalgia value plus 5000. Not enough to activate a cursed spirit, nostalgia value has been stored. 15 comments 0 vote. Bonus, activating Choso. Suzaku had not lied. The central town of Omegakure had been utterly destroyed by the war. Haruki held Suzaku's hand and looked around. The once neatly arranged houses were now nothing but broken walls and crumbling ruins. Bricks, stones, and rubble were piled into messy mounds. The air was thick with a strong smell of burning, mixed with damp fishiness and mildew. Watch your step. Suzaku's reminder came to Haruki's ears. Haruki looked down and saw that he was stepping on a pile of rubble. A slight misstep could cause him to lose his footing or kick a sharp fragment. War is terrifying, Haruki exclaimed. Suzaku did not deny it. He continued to walk towards the central area, holding Haruki's hand. The outline of steel buildings emerging in the distance made Haruki breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the central area had not been destroyed by the war. He certainly didn't want to live in ruins forever. Two towering structures of steel stood before Haruki. Between the two towers stretched an iron net nearly 10 meters high, covered in sharp spikes. After Suzaku appeared beneath the iron net, it wasn't long before two dark figures leapt down from the towers, landing in front of Suzaku. Their masks couldn't hide their excited emotions. You're finally back. We almost thought. The two ninjas didn't continue speaking. It's good that you're back. They patted Suzaku's shoulder. A relaxed smile appeared on Suzaku's face. He glanced at Haruki. Without Haruki, he might have truly died. He had been sent by Hanzo to investigate intelligence in Tsunade, and was accidentally discovered by the ninjas of Tsunade. The Tsunade ninja pursuing him thought he was severely wounded and certain to die, but they didn't expect him to return alive. The two AIM ninjas' gazes swept over Haruki. They looked at Suzaku in confusion and reminded him, it's not suitable to bring civilians here. Once war broke out, no one could look after civilians. Civilians were very likely to be mistakenly killed as ninja. Not to mention such a small child. Getting caught in a ninja battle would make survival even more difficult. Suzaku nodded, I know. The two ninjas were stunned. If he knew, why would he still do this? Before Suzaku could speak further, Haruki spoke first. Big brother, I insisted on coming in myself, please don't blame brother Suzaku. Haruki released Suzaku's hand, stepped forward, and stood in front of Suzaku in a protective stance. Ding. System detected Suzaku's nostalgia value plus 2000. Currently collected nostalgia value totals 10,000, activating cursed spirit number 002, cursed womb, death painting, Choso. Choso 10%. The cursed spirit activated by nostalgia value was actually Choso. Why? Was it because Choso always reminisced about the good old days with his brothers? He's not an ordinary child, he possesses extremely powerful medical ninjutsu. If it weren't for him, I would be dead by now. Suzaku solemnly explained to the two ninjas. What? The ninjas' shocked gazes fell upon Haruki. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Such a small child could use medical ninjutsu. And saved Suzaku. Haruki looked at Suzaku, then raised his head to face the two ninjas. I'm here to protect Omegakure with everyone and drive out the enemy. Quote. A ninja scoffed, You haven't even fully matured yet. Go home and drink your milk. Suzaku said, his parents died in the war. The smile on the ninja's face immediately vanished. He has no family left. He asked Suzaku in a hushed voice. Suzaku nodded, his medical ninjutsu is very strong. I'm taking him to see Hanzo-sama. Seeing Suzaku's serious demeanor, the ninja couldn't help but question it. Could this child really use medical ninjutsu? But how old was he? The number of medical ninjas in the entire Omegakure was not large. After the war broke out, the medical ninjas of Omegakure were constantly targeted and killed by Konoha and Tsunade. Now, the entire Omegakure couldn't even find 3 medical ninjas. The two ninjas exchanged glances. They opened a tightly shut iron door beneath the iron net. The rusty iron door let out a creaking sigh. Haruki took Suzaku's hand again and walked inside the iron door. After they entered, the two ninjas closed the iron door. Inside the iron door was a city built of steel. The buildings were constructed exceptionally tall to save space. Being built of steel, even if war broke out, they wouldn't easily collapse or be damaged. Haruki and Suzaku walked along the street, which was empty. Occasionally, dark figures would flit overhead. Is there no place to eat here? Haruki hadn't seen a single restaurant along the way. Suzaku shook his head and said, Ninja's food is distributed at fixed times. Is Hanzo-sama very powerful? Haruki felt it was necessary to gather some information about Hanzo in advance. I heard my parents talk about Hanzo-sama. They said he is the strongest ninja. Suzaku looked at Haruki's innocent eyes, nodded, and affirmed, Hanzo-sama is indeed the strongest ninja. Without Hanzo-sama, we would be no match for Konoha and Tsunade at all. Omegakure would forever be a battlefield for Konoha and Tsunade. Suzaku's voice was filled with admiration for Hanzo. I believe Hanzo-sama will lead us to completely drive out Konoha and Tsunade. The future Omegakure will no longer struggle for survival between Konoha and Tsunade. The villagers of Omegakure will no longer be tormented by war. The light in Suzaku's eyes grew brighter and brighter, a faint blush appeared on his face, and he excitedly gripped Haruki's wrist. Haruki. Suzaku was actually a crazy fan of Hanzo. Hanzo-sama is amazing. Haruki nodded heavily and vowed, I want to become a ninja as powerful as Hanzo-sama too. A hint of a smile flashed in Suzaku's eyes. He didn't crush the child's dream. I believe you can become a more powerful ninja than me. A steady voice came from a distance. Suzaku froze, then immediately looked forward. A familiar tall figure appeared ahead. Hanzo-sama. Suzaku immediately released Haruki's hand and bowed. Hanzo walked up to Suzaku and helped him up. It's good that you're alright. Suzaku's eyes reddened, and his face was full of guilt. This subordinate is incompetent. Hanzo patted his shoulder and said, this mission was inherently dangerous, it's already not easy for you to return safely. Hanzo's voice revealed strong confidence. What's more, even without intelligence from Sunagaker, I can drive them out. 8 comments 0 vote. A horrifying sight. Haruki looked at Hanzo. At this moment, Hanzo was full of vigor and ambition. He was indeed an excellent leader. Haruki's gaze attracted Hanzo's attention. Hanzo squatted down, looking at Haruki with a smile in his eyes. I believe you will become a stronger ninja than me in the future, but before you become a stronger ninja than me, you must first survive. This is not a place for a child like you. Haruki looked into Hanzo's eyes, he raised his head to look at Suzaku, and reached out to tug on Suzaku's sleeve. Suzaku immediately explained, Hanzo-sama, all of his relatives have died in the war. I brought him back because he has special abilities. Hanzo looked at Haruki, his heart sinking. Did they all die in the war? He would definitely end the war in a Megakure. However, special abilities. Hanzo understood Suzaku. His subordinate would not lie. A hint of curiosity flashed in Hanzo's eyes. What kind of special ability was it? Suzaku continued, he possesses powerful medical ninjutsu. If it weren't for him, I might have died on the way back. Hanzo looked at Haruki in shock, his pupils widening. Haruki gave him a smile and said, I'm here to help Hanzo-sama, and I also hope to contribute my strength. The child's tender voice echoed in Hanzo's mind. He suppressed the complex emotions in his heart, stood up, and looked at Suzaku. For such a young child to possess medical ninjutsu sounded like a fantasy. But considering Suzaku's expression, he did not seem to be faking it. And Suzaku could not possibly deceive him. Hanzo's gaze fell on Haruki. The child's eager gaze made him feel a moment of trance. He hadn't seen such a vibrant child in a Megakure for a long time. The war had deeply harmed this village and these children. Neither this village nor these children could smile anymore. Hanzo took a deep breath, and looked at Haruki. Come with me to a place. Haruki nodded, following behind Hanzo. Suzaku walked beside Haruki. Hanzo led them towards a tall iron tower. The smell of blood in the air grew stronger and stronger. Haruki's gaze passed through Hanzo, landing on the iron tower in front of him. He had already guessed where this place was. The gathering place for war casualties. Hanzo had brought him here to verify the truth of Suzaku's words. Hanzo did not push the door open directly, he turned to look at Haruki behind him. His 8-year-old body meant Haruki had to look up to see Hanzo. Hanzo-sama, where is this? Haruki pretended to be ignorant and asked curiously. Half of Hanzo's face was blocked by a respirator, only his eyes could convey emotion. Beyond this door are countless ninjas injured for a Megakure. Hanzo's voice reached Haruki's ears through the respirator. Haruki seemed to only hear the word, injured, and the emotion on his face was immediately replaced by anxiety. Hanzo-sama. Please let me in to treat them. Looking at the sincere emotion in his eyes, Hanzo's heart stirred. However, his eyes did not reveal any emotion. Aren't you afraid? Hanzo continued, some of them have lost their legs, some are blind, and some. Hanzo watched as the child's face grew paler. He was interrupted by the child in front of him before he could finish speaking. I'm not afraid. Haruki said loudly. His eyes gleamed with firm light, making others not doubt the truthfulness of his words in the slightest. I'm not afraid. They are protecting a Megakure. They are heroes. I want to save them. Haruki's voice grew louder and more determined with each word. There was no fear in his eyes, only an iron-like will. Looking at his eloquent appearance, Hanzo's pupils widened, and he felt a moment of trance. It was as if he saw himself as a child, resolutely deciding to transplant the poison sac into his body. How much this child in front of him resembled himself when he was young. Ding. System detected Hanzo's nostalgia value plus 3000. Ding. Your cursed spirit Choso's rank has increased to 13%. Haruki. He didn't know what had happened, but he probably knew how to gain Hanzo and Suzaku's nostalgia value now. The core was just one word, act. Good. Hanzo's comforting large hand landed on Haruki's shoulder. Haruki gave him a brilliant smile. Hanzo pushed open the heavy iron door in front of them. The stale air that had been confined behind the door immediately rushed out like a flood. Haruki almost couldn't breathe. He looked at the scene before him in shock. Even though Rika and Sukuna had severely trained his endurance, this scene still made the acid in his stomach churn. The ground was strewn with injured ninja. Just as Hanzo said, even more exaggerated than Hanzo described. The wounds on these ninjas exceeded a normal person's endurance. Haruki was so overwhelmed by the scene that he took a while to recover. Hanzo and Suzaku were both observing his reaction. The only two medical ninjas inside the iron rower looked towards them. They temporarily stopped their work and walked towards Hanzo. Hanzo-sama. Seeing the faces of the two medical ninjas, Haruki took a sharp breath. The dark circles under the eyes of the two medical ninjas in front of him were almost reaching their chins. They looked hardly better than the injured ninjas on the ground. How much had they been exploited? You've worked hard, Hanzo said to them. The two medical ninjas numbly shook their heads. They no longer had the strength to speak. Haruki took a deep breath, his voice clear. Hanzo-sama. Let me treat them. Haruki looked at Hanzo with determination. A hint of relief flashed in Hanzo's eyes, he nodded. Go. The two medical ninjas' gazes focused on Haruki, confused. Haruki walked towards the nearest ninja. He squatted beside the ninja, examining his injuries. The ninja's main injuries were to his legs. Both legs were charred black, like two pieces of dark charcoal. They must have been burned by fire release ninjutsu. An ordinary medical ninja really couldn't heal such injuries. Even if they were healed, the ninja in front of him would only be a cripple in the future. But reverse curse technique was different. Reverse curse technique could reverse the negative energy that caused wounds, generating positive energy with regenerative capabilities. As long as the person hadn't completely become a corpse, reverse curse technique could exert super healing effects. 7 comments 0 vote. Bonus gratitude value. The two medical ninjas exchanged glances. They didn't understand what Hanzo was doing. Why bring a child here? Although they were puzzled, they did not question Hanzo's decision. They just watched the scene quietly. But they still couldn't help but find it absurd. Haruki extended his hands and placed them on the ninja's legs. Cursed energy surged within his body, flowing continuously towards his hands. A green light emanated from his palms. It was like a vibrant green sprout. Upon seeing this, the two medical ninjas' numb expressions shattered. Their eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. However, what happened next completely stunned them. The green light covered the injured ninja's legs. Charred scabs continuously fell to the ground. Fresh, red flesh began to regenerate at a visible speed. Not only the two medical ninjas, but even Hanzo's breathing became rapid. Flames burned fiercely in his pupils as he stared intently at Haruki. The ninja, whose consciousness had long since fallen into darkness, suddenly let out a cry of pain. He struggled to open his eyes and saw an unfamiliar child. The two medical ninjas simultaneously held down the injured ninja's shoulders. Don't move. He's helping you heal. The two medical ninjas gulped, their gaze never leaving Haruki. Hanzo-sama. The injured ninja raised his eyes and saw Hanzo and Suzaku standing nearby. Hanzo was too preoccupied to pay attention to him at this moment. All his energy was focused on Haruki. The injured ninja's gaze slowly shifted downwards. He saw his gradually recovering legs and the exceptionally serious child. His pupils suddenly widened, and he looked at the child before him in disbelief. His legs actually. But didn't the medical ninja say they couldn't be healed back then? What was happening now? And who was this child? A series of questions filled his mind. He was no longer able to think. And beside him, the two medical ninjas were in the same state. The intense shock left them unable to do anything but stare blankly at the child's actions before them. Haruki watched as the charred legs beneath his palms returned to normal, then he withdrew his hands. Cursed energy flowed within his body. All done. Haruki wiped away non-existent sweat from his forehead, smiled, and gasped as if utterly exhausted. My legs. The ninja extended his trembling hands. His hands pressed against his legs. A little stinging pain. Pain. He could feel pain. Let me help you up to walk. Haruki stood up, extended his hand towards him, his face full of anticipation. Walk. The ninja was stunned. He could actually walk. Looking at the child's outstretched hand, the ninja tremblingly offered his own. Leaning on Haruki's hand, the ninja slowly got up from the ground. Aside from the initial awkwardness, he didn't notice any abnormalities. Haruki released his hand. He didn't notice. He was completely immersed in the ecstasy of his legs recovering. I can walk. I've recovered. Quote. He looked up, his tear-filled eyes brimming with surprise and relief. Seeing his appearance, Suzaku breathed a sigh of relief, his gaze falling on Haruki. Fortunately, he had brought Haruki back. That's wonderful. Haruki looked at the ninja before him and said happily. The ninja looked at Haruki, his hands gripping Haruki's shoulders. Thank you. Tears welled up in the ninja's eyes. Ding. System detected Ninja Tetsu's gratitude value plus 1000. Did not reach the activation value for a cursed spirit, gratitude value has been stored. Gratitude value. What kind of cursed spirit can be activated by gratitude value? Haruki's peripheral vision swept over the large group of injured ninjas. Aren't these all his gratitude values? Haruki said to the ninja named Tetsu before him, you're welcome. You are a hero who protects a megakure, and I'm very happy to help you. Before Tetsu could say anything more, Haruki hurriedly said, I need to save the others. I can't delay. Tetsu watched with wide eyes as he ran to another injured, unconscious ninja and squatted down. Tetsu's eyes were red, a hero. So, in this child's eyes, even an unknown person like him was a hero. Suzaku patted Tetsu's shoulder and said, it's good that you've recovered. How did he do it? Even now, the two medical ninjas couldn't believe their eyes. I don't know. The other medical ninja shook his head and said, logically speaking, even if Tsunade, the most renowned medical ninja of the ninja world, came, Tetsu's leg injury couldn't be restored to its original state. But he did it, the medical ninja murmured. Perhaps this is a gift from heaven to our megakure. Seeing Haruki begin to heal again, the two medical ninjas quickly ran to his side to help him. Although they couldn't help with the healing itself, they could at least help him hold down the injured. To prevent the injured from moving around and interfering with the treatment. What's his name? Hanzo watched Haruki intently treating the ninja and asked. Haruki Shiratori. Suzaku said each word carefully and seriously. Haruki Shiratori. Hanzo repeated. He thought of what the medical ninja had just said. Perhaps Haruki truly was sent by heaven to help a megakure. Hanzo was indeed powerful, but no matter how strong he was, he couldn't prevent casualties among his subordinates. And now, Haruki's arrival perfectly compensated for his weakness. With Haruki's presence, a megakure would become even stronger. Hanzo's heart was immediately filled with boundless ambition. Ding. System detected Takagawa's gratitude value plus 1000. Did not reach the activation value for a cursed spirit, gratitude value has been stored. Takagawa tremblingly caressed his chest, his heart beating powerfully, and tears of gratitude streamed from his eyes. Thank you. Haruki smiled at him and then, without stopping, went to collect gratitude values from the remaining ninja. He already had Rika, Sukuna, and Choso, but of course, the more cursed spirits, the better. A medical ninja followed Haruki and reminded him, do you want to rest for a bit? Haruki was still a child after all, and continuous healing like this must be very draining for him. No need. Saving lives is more important. Haruki tightened his face and said seriously. Rest first. Hanzo's hand rested on Haruki's shoulder, his attitude firm. He couldn't let saving others harm Haruki's body. Haruki shook his head at Hanzo and explained, I'm really fine. If I couldn't handle it, I would definitely stop and rest. Don't disturb him from earning gratitude value. 15 comments 0 vote. Hatred value. Ding. System detected Rin's gratitude value plus 1000. The value for activating a cursed spirit has not been reached, gratitude value has been stored. Haruki didn't stop for a moment, immediately running to the next ninja awaiting treatment. Hanzo kept a constant eye on Haruki. As soon as a hint of fatigue appeared on his face, he would immediately make Haruki stop. Watching Haruki not pause for a moment, focused on saving people, Hanzo couldn't help but think of himself. This child in front of him was too much like his former self. Equally devoted to the village, equally selflessly dedicated to the village, equally firm in will. Ding. System detected Hanzo's nostalgia value plus 3000. Ding. Your cursed spirit Choso's rank has increased to 16%. Haruki subtly glanced at Hanzo. To gain Hanzo's nostalgia value, he had to act like a strong little boy who loved a megakure in front of Hanzo. Currently, it seemed Hanzo was quite susceptible to this approach. Gratitude values dinged and rang incessantly in Haruki's mind. Haruki had never heard such beautiful music. Now that the gratitude value had reached 9000, after treating just one more person, he would be able to activate a new cursed spirit. Haruki couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. He swiftly ran towards the injured ninja. Ding. System detected Tsuko's killing intent value plus 5000. Ding. Your cursed spirit Sukuna's rank has increased to 20%. Killing intent value. Where did the killing intent value come from? Haruki's gaze subtly swept over the injured ninjas on the ground. Who is Suko? Why would he have killing intent value towards him? Could this Suko be an infiltrator sent by another ninja village to a megakure? The more Haruki thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Only an infiltrator from another ninja village would have killing intent towards him, who could heal aim ninjas. Such strong killing intent, it seemed he was eager to eliminate him, this threat. Haruki didn't know who this Suko was, nor could he rashly ask Hanzo and Suzaku. But he believed this Suko would definitely make a move against him. Before making his move, this Suko must contribute more killing intent value to him. Haruki nonchalantly knelt down and continued his treatment. Thank you. The ninja leaning against the wall smiled at Haruki. Haruki watched the wound under his hand gradually heal, and he glanced at the ninja in front of him. Strange. Why was there no gratitude value? I have something I want to give you, thank you, for saving me. The ninja's pale lips moved, his eyes full of anticipation as he looked at Haruki. Haruki raised an eyebrow. This ninja kept saying, thank you, but he still hadn't received any gratitude value from him. Ding. System detected Suko's killing intent value plus 3000. Ding. Your cursed spirit Sukuna's rank has increased to 23%. Haruki stared at the ninja in front of him. So, this ninja in front of him was Suko. What a coincidence. No wonder he wasn't receiving gratitude value. This ninja named Suko only had killing intent towards him. No, how can I accept your gift? Haruki, full of integrity, said with great principle, I saved you because you are a hero who protected the village, not for your gift. After speaking, he turned and extended his hand towards the injured ninja behind him. He had already given Suko the opportunity, he hoped Suko wouldn't disappoint him. Haruki wasn't worried about getting injured at all. Since he had started saving people, Hanzo's gaze had never left him. Even if Hanzo didn't react in time, he still had Rika, Sukuna, and Choso as triple safeguards. Of course, Haruki didn't believe this ninja named Suko could successfully assassinate him under Hanzo's nose. Ding. System detected Suko's killing intent value plus 3000. Ding. Your cursed spirit Sukuna's rank has increased to 26%. Suko looked at the defenseless child in front of him, his fingers twitching. Even if his identity was exposed, he would die with this child. With this child present, the casualties of a megakure would be greatly reduced. The threat to Tsunade would be greater. For Tsunade, he would kill this child even if it meant his own death. He absolutely could not let this child live. Otherwise, a megakure would be like a tiger with wings. Defeating a megakure would become even more difficult. Haruki's hands glowed with a green light. He seemed to notice nothing, absorbed in his treatment. The AIM ninja receiving his treatment slowly regained consciousness, and the two medical ninjas on either side helped support the injured ninja's body. Hanzo watched Haruki's complexion. After this ninja's treatment was complete, he would force Haruki to rest for a while. No matter how powerful Haruki's talent was, it couldn't change the fact that he was still a child. He was destined not to work day and night like an adult medical ninja. In the dim tower, a white light flashed quickly in Hanzo's eyes. The tip of a kunai approached Haruki's neck. Hanzo's pupils constricted. Haruki. Suzaku trembled all over and immediately ran towards Haruki. However, a figure was faster than him. Even with preparation, the moment danger arrived, the hairs on Haruki's nape stood on end. Bang! A loud bang erupted from behind him. Haruki turned his head sharply. Suko's body was heavily stomped onto the floor by Hanzo. His arms and legs were all broken by Hanzo, twisted into distorted poses. His head was forcefully smashed into the floor by Hanzo, and blood gushed from his mouth and nose. His resentful gaze fell upon Haruki. Ding. System detected Suko's hatred value plus 5000. The value for activating a cursed spirit has not been reached, hatred value has been stored. Hanzo cleanly dislocated his jaw to prevent him from committing suicide. He stared darkly at the ninja on the ground, an infiltrator had actually gotten in. And he almost injured Haruki. Hanzo nodded towards Suzaku and said, drag him out. Hanzo didn't need to say more, Suzaku knew what to do. Suzaku stepped forward, grabbed Suko's hair, and roughly dragged Suko towards the door. Haruki stood dumbfounded, maintaining his shocked state. In his mind, however, he was thinking about the hatred value Suko had just contributed to him. Killing intent value activated Sukuna, nostalgia value activated Choso, so which cursed spirit could hatred value activate? Mahito. Jago. Hanami. Haruki went through all the cursed spirits' names in his mind. He felt that the cursed spirit most likely to be activated by extreme emotions like hatred value was Mahito. Unfortunately, only 5,000 hatred value was collected. Haruki sighed regretfully in his heart. Haruki. Are you alright? Hanzo crouched in front of Haruki, his eyes filled with concern. After the attack just now, Haruki was like a stone statue, losing all reaction. The two medical ninjas nervously supported Haruki. End of chapter. 100 Power Stones equals 1 bonus chapter. Like it. Add to library. Astralicity creators' thoughts. 10 comments 0 vote. Bonus What's with this RCT? Haruki, who seemed to have lost his soul, suddenly shivered. His pupils stiffly rotated. It's not finished yet, he muttered to himself. Haruki continued to turn, a green light glowing in his hand. Only when the ninja's last wound healed did he withdraw his hand, collapsing onto the ground, his face pale. The ninja looked at his healed wounds, then at Haruki. This child was so frightened, yet he still remembered to heal him. Ding. System detected Liko's gratitude value plus 1,000. 10,000 gratitude points have been collected, activating curse spirit number 003, Land God. Land God 10%. Haruki had an impression of this cursed spirit, mainly because its ability was too special. Instant death gaze. As long as the target is gazed upon by Land God's pupils, the target will begin to rot within 10 seconds, ultimately dying. Hanzo-sama. Haruki opened his mouth, a bright light quickly appearing in his pupils as he stared intently at Hanzo. Hanzo-sama is amazing. Thank you for saving me. Under Haruki's adoring gaze, Hanzo's heart instantly softened. Haruki, were you scared? Rest for a while. Two medical ninjas walked up to Haruki, one touching Haruki's forehead, the other checking if the back of his neck was injured, as if they wanted to hold Haruki in their palms. Haruki's face returned to normal. He smiled at the two medical ninjas, took a deep breath, and said loudly, I want to become a powerful ninja like Hanzo-sama. I won't be easily scared. The two medical ninjas were startled. A smile appeared in Hanzo's eyes. Good. I believe in you. Hanzo encouragingly patted Haruki's shoulder. Looking at Haruki, an idea formed in Hanzo's mind. Haruki could master medical ninjutsu at such a young age, so mastering other ninjutsu should not be difficult either. Haruki could not be left without the power to protect himself. I still want to continue saving everyone. Haruki said firmly. No matter how the medical ninjas tried to persuade him, he did not stop to rest. The number of ninjas he healed increased, and the gratitude points he collected also increased. In just one day, the new cursed spirit's rank had already risen to 35%. Haruki believed that if this continued, it would definitely be the fastest to reach 100%. As long as the war continued, ninja would constantly be injured. Gratitude points would continuously flow to Haruki. However, Haruki was not content with just absorbing gratitude points. When night completely enveloped Omegakure, Haruki stopped what he was doing. Let's collect gratitude points up to here for today. After all, his cursed energy was also limited. Although the activation and upgrade of Choso and Land God had given him a lot of cursed energy, he would still get tired from continuously using reverse curse technique. Come, I'll take you to a place to rest. Hanzo said to Haruki. Haruki nodded. He followed Hanzo, leaving the iron tower and coming to the street. As night fell, warm yellow lights lit up on the street, and the road was no longer empty. The ninjas on the street saw Hanzo, their eyes full of reverence. Hanzo-sama. Hanzo nodded to them. He could feel Haruki's burning gaze beside him. What's wrong? Hanzo looked at him and asked. Haruki's eyes glowed as he asked, Hanzo-sama, can I learn ninjutsu from you? Hanzo was startled. He looked at Haruki seriously. Even if Haruki didn't say it, he had already planned to let him follow him to learn ninjutsu. Too many ninjas had died in the war, and the village's next generation of ninja needed to grow up. After a full day of observation today, he was very satisfied with Haruki. This child was too much like him. Resilient, kind, brave, and loved the village. Ding. System detected Hanzo's nostalgia value plus 1000. Ding. Your cursed spirit Choso's rank has risen to 17%. Why? Hanzo asked. He wanted to know Haruki's thoughts. My power can heal them, but it cannot protect them. Haruki gave Hanzo an unexpected answer. Hanzo was startled. Haruki, as if unaware of his reaction, was immersed in his own world and slowly said, I want to be like Hanzo-sama, to have the power to protect the village. If I had been as strong as Hanzo-sama then, my mom and dad wouldn't have died. I don't want the people in the village to shed painful tears like I did then. Hanzo saw his reddened eyes, tears welling up in them. Haruki sniffled, forcing the tears back into his eyes. Hanzo's heart was like a water-soaked sponge, becoming wet and heavy, constantly sinking in his chest. Okay. Hanzo nodded, he reminded, learning ninjutsu with me will be very hard. I will guide you strictly. A surprised smile appeared on Haruki's face. I'm not afraid of hardship. A hint of satisfaction flashed in Hanzo's eyes. The accommodation Hanzo arranged for Haruki was right next to Hanzo's. Haruki looked at the standard single apartment in front of him. Hanzo at this time was truly incorruptible. It was impossible to imagine that Hanzo would later get lost in power and wealth. Rest well. Hanzo said to Haruki. Tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock, start learning ninjutsu with me. 5 o'clock. Haruki gulped. He nodded heavily under Hanzo's scrutinizing gaze. I understand. Hanzo-sama. Hanzo turned and left. Haruki stood at the door, watching Hanzo open the door to the single apartment next door, his figure disappearing behind the door. Only then did he return to his own room and close the door. Sitting on the tatami in the narrow living room, Haruki immediately opened his information page. Personal information. Name: Haruki Shiratori. Identity: Yuta Okkotsu, Cursed Spirit Mother. Age: 823. Gender: male. Associated Cursed Spirit: Rika. Cursed Spirit Illustrated Book: Rika activated, Sukuna activated, Choso activated, Land God activated, Jago not activated. Click to expand. Body abilities: Copy activated, current progress 49%. Click to expand. Black Flash activated, Reverse Curse Technique not activated, Domain Expansion not activated. Haruki called out to the system in his mind, didn't my Reverse Curse Technique already activate? Has the system not had time to update yet? Host, please clarify. You activated Shoko Ieri's copyable Reverse Curse Technique, not your body's inherent Reverse Curse Technique. Haruki was expressionless. What's the difference? Host, the Reverse Curse Technique you activated can only heal others.